Hi, everyone. Gretchen from the Anti-Boring Approach to School and Life. It is August. I can't believe it. August 2021. And I am on my first day back from vacation. I take the month of July off in my business every year. I am so grateful that I have learned how to financially and administratively make that work for myself. It's one of the ways that I can continue the feeling of being a teacher and also not have to work in the schools anymore. But in this moment, I want to accomplish several welcome back to a new school year kinds of things. And the first thing is to acknowledge it's the year of the gap for Gretchen. Isn't that amazing? I can't believe I've had this gap for about 2 weeks now as a result of this expander in my mouth. It's pushing my palate and making it wider. And we're just going to get to see how long I have this gap, and you guys are going to get to track it with me. So it is my gap year, as a friend of mine said. But in this video today, because I always like to both update you about my world, but also make sure I'm giving a great piece of either advice or a good learning nugget, I want to introduce you all to what I am calling the art and skill of the both and. Now I'll read this definition for you in a moment, but first I want to give you a little background. So I just took this massive road trip. I haven't counted up the miles yet, but I went maybe around 3,000 miles, I think, maybe 2,000, somewhere between the two. Drove all the way to Western South Dakota to the Badlands to meet up with my amazing family, my brother, his wife, and my the two kiddos, nieces and nephews. We drove together for a while camping, and then I drove back through Idaho. And all along, I anticipated that I would get lonely on the parts of the trip where I was by myself, because I had probably a good 2 weeks where I was completely by myself on the trip. So I started a WhatsApp broadcast list for just 14 friends to help accompany me on the trip. And what was awesome about this broadcast list is that it allowed them to reply just to me, not to everybody else, just to me about the stories I told, and it kept me updated about their lives as well. And for those of you who know about my gears right here, one of the ways to get in gear is to include your team, right? To learn how to include other people. And so I was really practicing that on this trip. And I noticed that I loved every response that any friend wrote me, but the ones I liked the most, that really dropped deeply into my heart and had me feel so seen and connected, were the ones that acknowledged both the joys and the difficulties of my trip. And boy, did my trip have difficulties. And boy, was I committed to telling the stories about both of them. So much these days, we just tell the happy stories on social media. And I never feel good about that when I'm witnessing other people or in my own life. I want people to know the fullness of who I am. And I was talking with a friend about how some folks, and it's a totally societally accepted thing to do, just say, wow, sounds like you're having a great trip. And I was having a great trip to some extent, but I was having a complex trip. And so my friend and I were talking about this, noticing this observation I had. And she said, yeah, I wish that every person, like one of the main skills we were taught, one of the main people skills that we're taught when we're younger, is this art and skill of the both and. And so I just now wrote a definition for it. I just made it up. And that is intentionally feeling, this is an empathy skill, intentionally feeling into the complexity of life, your own and others, and learning how to acknowledge the fullness of human experience, rather than simplifying it to the one thing you noticed and want to remember in that moment. So some friends were so great at saying, wow, what a fun trip to Yellowstone, but wow, I also imagine you must be really exhausted or lonely or sad because of X, Y, and Z that happened. And I wanted to start our school year off together, start my first day back at work by acknowledging the both and. In a moment, I'm going to tell you some of my stories. So this is going to be a slightly longer video, my happy stories and my challenging stories from my trip. But in this moment, if this is all you have time to watch, I just want to invite you to pay attention this next school year to the fullness of your own human experience and to your loved ones, whether that is the kiddos in your classrooms, if you're a teacher, parents, that could be your own kiddos, people who are starting businesses. My goodness, there is never one story. There's never just one happy story about starting your own business. It is so complicated. And I do notice even in my own anti-boring educators community, people feel so deeply seen in whatever they're doing, whether they're struggling through trying to incorporate new skills in their classroom or whether they are really trying to get a business off the ground. And with students too in coaching, I think one of the reasons a lot of our clients are able to take to grow so much during the school year is because good coaches honor the fullness. They don't just push hard to change one habit. They really acknowledge where you are and they see their clients deeply. So I would love us all, and even to see ourselves deeply, right? Sometimes we are the ones who are so critical of ourselves. This is like, it's just terrible what I'm doing. And how can we see ourselves in the fullness of our humanity as well? That is what I wish for all of us, no matter who we are this school year. And here's my list of the happy faces and the arg faces from this summer. Maybe we'll start with the arg. I always like to start with grumpitude, actually. I am such a fan of grumpitude. So in some ways, these are not in good storytelling order, but the first one is on my drive home through Idaho. Boy, did I have to deal with the smoke. And my plans were waylaid because there were so many fires. And I just realized it was not good for my health to camp outside in that much smoke. So I had to make a bunch of last minute decisions. They actually did, happy face, end up bringing some real joy to my trip that I hadn't imagined, because I got to go visit family in a different part of Northern California than I had been planning on going to. But anyway, that was definitely hard. There were some gorgeous mountain vistas, one of which I hiked 5 miles uphill with a hurt toe to get to by myself. And I felt like such a badass, y'all. There were other kiddos doing this backpacking trip 5 miles up to the to Sawtooth Lake. I think that's what it was, in Idaho, Sawtooth Mountains. And so I wondered whether I should call myself a badass since kids were doing this hike too, but I am calling myself a badass. I felt it. This is such a special memory. As some of you may know, I'm a little scared of water, but I bought myself a paddle board for the summer because I wanted to go paddle boarding on mountain lakes. And I learned that there's almost nothing is more beautiful than making a cup of coffee, pushing out onto a lake and just sitting there in the placid water before the winds come, looking at the mountain vistas and drinking my coffee in the middle of a lake. It is pretty darn special. So on the ARG side here, I had three mechanical issues with my car, 2 of which have been repaired. One I could wait on, and so I'm going to get that repaired at the next oil change, but they did cause a slowdown. They caused extra money, not just at the mechanic, but because I then had to get motel rooms. They were scary. One of them happened when I was by myself with my niece, and the rest of my family was about 300 miles behind us on the road. So those were really included getting the car towed, really scary. But also happened in the most magical of ways, I have to say. Like, one of them, I don't even want to get into what it was, but one of them, had it happened on the highway, would have been especially scary, but it actually happened right after I turned off the highway into a state park. So it was a perfect, if you're going to be stuck somewhere, that was a perfect place to get stuck. Both and, right? And then on the ARG side, again here, loneliness. I really, the older I get, the more I'm so proud of my adventurous spirit. And, I've been alone and single a lot of my life. So I've had to take myself on these adventures by myself. And I'm proud of that. And I will do it for the rest of my life if I need to. But boy, did I really need to get my team, speaking of the gears, in extra order with me, because I was extra lonely on this particular trip when I wasn't with family. And speaking of family, that's actually really the biggest one. I shouldn't have had it be number 3. But being able to share, my niece is 10, my nephew's 13, share this trip with them and my brother and sister, and make decisions, spur of the moment decisions together to further our adventure, or to take something icky that happened, like the mechanical issues, and turn it into an even bigger adventure, and try and, as they say, make lemonade out of lemons, and to do that in partnership with my family, and to be able to hold hands and to hug and to cuddle and to laugh and be silly and even to have some arguments at times. But all of that was so special, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So this is my both and I would so love to hear about your both ands from the summer. Feel free to, if you want to share, post below. Or if you've been following me for a while and just want to send me a personal message, Gretchen@GretchenWegner.com is where you are welcome to email. How'd the summer go? What are your both ands about this upcoming school year? I know there are going to be many, and more about that another video. But mostly, I just want to, from my heart to yours, say, I'm back. I'm here for you, whether you are a student, an educator, or an educator starting your business. Let's have ourselves an anti-boring school year, and let's embrace the both and of the experience we're about to have, and support each other through the hard things and celebrate the things that are there to be celebrated. And I will see you, as always, next week, y'all. Bye.